fight from within. You're about to go behind enemy lines.
Roger, 3-2. Goliath copies all. Go ahead. Target is surrounded by multiple firms entering what appears to be a residential area. Requesting permission to engage. Over.
From the People's Republic of New York City, you're now going behind enemy lines with Gene Baradelli and Russ Gallo.
And you are now behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Baradelli here with you. So glad you can join us this week, whether you're listening to us at www.behindenemilinesradio.us, whether you're listening to us on one of our many rebroadcast outlets on AM radio, FM radio, internet radio, however it may be, or if you're taking us along with you as a podcast, thanks for joining us. We're glad to be on the ride with you through what has become very tumultuous times now in our nation and in the world. We got a great show for you this week. We have Roger Stone, a man that I think we can legitimately call a political legend. At the very least, you can call him an iconoclast, a man who has kind of shaped the times that he has been in, has shaped politics as we know it. You would not have heard the phrase opposition research without thinking of Roger Stone. There are many, many topics we covered in our interview, conducted by me and by a fellow attorney, friend, and employer recently. His name is Gerald Gross. You'll be hearing some questions from him, some very insightful questions. We're going to be talking about Syria, we're going to be talking about North Korea, and we're going to be talking about Russia especially, and the relationship that Congress alleges he has, and what's the status of him testifying. It's a great interview, nice long interview. Roger was very generous with his time. You'll hear that coming up in a few minutes. But first, let's get down to it. The world, shockingly, is a dangerous place. I mean, we've been saying this for years, folks, on this show. Myself and Russ Gallo, who has been around the world and has seen evil in the face, especially in the Middle East. This is, in part, the evil that we've all known about, we've all talked about, but it's also a product of the Obama administration's covering up and glossing over world events and ceding responsibility where America has traditionally had a role. When we talk about Syria, and listen, I don't need to recap for you what's happened in Syria. I don't need to recap for you the chemical weapons that were used, according to intelligence sources, by the Assad regime, which has the backing of the Russian government. We don't need to talk about the tragic deaths and the videos and photos of horrific events in Syria, photos of dead children who are gassed, families torn apart. I think we all know we all know the premise. We may not necessarily know what's going on. I know that there are many theories out there about who did what and when and all this other nonsense. And we don't even have to go into the proportional response that President Trump, who did a very quick 180, I might add, when it came to Syria. The proportional response by our military in sending in Tomahawk missiles into the region. I don't need to recap all that with you. What we're here to talk about tonight is where do we go from here? Because clearly this is not where we intended to be when it came to Syria. This is a change of policy that many did not see coming but for this horrific attack. And I got to give credit to the Trump administration and to President Trump for being decisive, for acting in a measured way, and for doing it really in a way that I would think a President Reagan or a President Bush would do. It was a response that didn't go off in a crazy way that many people thought Donald Trump would go off in. It was an attack on an air base where intelligence says that the chemical weapons were being stored. They let Russia know well in advance of when the attack was going to happen so that Russian forces would not be involved or affected. And they did it at a time when there would be the least amount of civilian loss is possible. Obviously, his military advisors were very aware of the optics of such an attack. So diplomatically, State Department and Defense Department, kudos to them for handling this the right way, in my opinion. And now we're living in the quote-unquote fallout of this attack on Syria and the Syrian attack on their people. Obviously, it's a destabilizing agent in the arena now in the Middle East. The United States is announcing their presence with authority again, which is something that so many people have been craving for and yearning for, getting tired of the secrecy of the drone attack or the ceding of responsibility to other actors like Russia in the area. But now where do we go? Because there's going to be some tense moments. And diplomatically speaking, I also have to give credit to our UN Ambassador Nikki Haley for being strong as well in the international arena. Many of you may have seen the meme of her memo when Bolivia wanted to have some sort of private security council conference. And Nikki Haley, who at the time, the United States has been chairing it this month at the Security Council, said, no, we're not going to do that. Even if it was just a meme, folks, she's got guts. She's got huevos, man. You have to see the way that she stares down Russian ambassadors in the UN. The U.S. has really announced their presence with authority again. And that's wonderful to see. Hopefully, the playing field has not changed so much that the United States' re-emergence in world affairs will not have so much of a negative blowback towards our men and women in uniform. I don't want to see World War III. I don't want to see Russia fighting with us. I don't want to see China going to North Korea's aid because their sphere of influence is now being affected by Trump's message that he really is sending to them as well by his actions in Syria. I don't want to see World War III occur when we see a battle group steaming towards Asia. But I want people to realize that, the boss is back and that their actions better be measured by their knowledge of the boss being back. I am interested to see what happens, and I pray that no more bloodshed happens to any civilians in Syria as a result of this, or our men and women in uniform. But let this be a lesson to everybody from the 8-year slumber that we had with the Obama administration. There is such a thing as evil in the world. By the way, remember those chemical weapons that John Kerry said didn't exist in Syria? The same ones that were used in Syria recently? Yeah. Let's wake up from our slumber, folks. Obama administration got a lot wrong internationally. They called ISIS the JV team, and then the attacks in France happened. Europe has been ravaged by attacks by refugees in their country and those masking themselves as refugees and then acting as terrorists. I mean, Sweden was said to be safe, and then just recently we had another attack in Sweden. World is an evil, evil place outside of the United States in many places. That's something that wasn't recognized. That was kind of fundamentally rejected by the Obama administration. The Obama administration wanted you to think that everything was under control. We know who's who and what's what. We don't have to be the world's policeman. And while I understand we don't need to be the world's policeman, I do think that America needs to be a check on evil around the world. And by evil, I don't just mean terrorists. I mean nations that treat their people atrociously, nations that certainly nations that use chemical weapons on their own people, and nations that sponsor and support bad actors internationally, all need to be kept in check. It's a check and a balance on the world. We don't need to be the world's police officer. We need to be the check on evil, because nobody else can do it, folks. Look at the size of the forces that are mounting on the other side of the ledger. If you want to consider Russia as evil, look at the size of their military. If you want to consider China as evil, look at the size of their military. And we consider them, quote-unquote, evil because they help evildoers. We see Iran emboldened in Syria because of Russian support for both. We see North Korea emboldened to act because they know that China is the one that's going to try to tamper them down, not the United States. And if the United States gets involved, China will step in because of ego and their sphere of influence. China doesn't like North Korea, but they have to tolerate them because that's their region. They are the Central Kingdom. They control that region in their minds. That's why they claim so many miles offshore. That's why they claim certain areas as their own, like Nepal, like Taiwan, like Hong Kong, and we gave them Hong Kong. You have to understand, geopolitically speaking, there is so many moving parts going on in Syria alone, between all the many actors there, between the Assad government, the rebels, the Russian influence, the Iranian influence, and the American influence. That is a flashpoint and a half that we really have to see what's going to happen. Now, I am glad and encouraged that Secretary of State Tillerson is in Moscow currently meeting with Russian diplomats. I am encouraged that the lines of communication are open since our Tomahawk missile assault on this airbase, our proportional and measured response. And I'm eager to see what comes out of this. It's going to be a tough time, folks, and it's going to be a tense time for many, many months to come, and possibly more than a year to come. And a lot of that is due because America is re-emerging onto the international stage as a power. We're going to see military buildups. We're going to see active duty call-ups, and our men and women and our family members are going to have to be, deployed overseas in different places. We're going to see escalation, and we're going to see some saber rattling on all sides. And the reason why we have all this saber rattling and posturing and reassessment of positions in the world is because the reemergence of America on the world stage and the rollback of the Obama doctrine of leading from behind. There's more questions right now than answers, folks, and I'm eager to see how it plays out. I just pray it doesn't play itself out in extended armed conflict or declarations of war or whatever it may be. Our focuses should always be on growing our economy, jobs, international relations for American goods and services to expand and to grow overseas, and America reaping the benefits of it. And we need our international partners and the interaction thereof to be able to accomplish many of those things. But I don't want to see bloodshed any more than we have. And while I understand the need for it in certain cases, let's all pray it doesn't go further than what we've seen, especially for those of us who are personally affected by these things. That being said, we need to make sure that these areas are stabilized. In order to stop the flow of refugees, we want to make sure that homelands of people who are able to leave their countries can go back there. But we also want to make sure that those who can't, the poorest of the poor in these countries, remain safe. There's so many moving parts here that it will take more than one show to really assess. But the message to take out of this situation is this, in my opinion. America's back, folks. And it's time to start reckoning with evil on our terms. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, we got Roger Stone on the show. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that we've been talking about now, and as well as the continuing farce of an investigation of Russian influence on our elections. Hey, by the way, anybody else think that Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin are still on the same page? Yeah, right. And we'll be talking about more things with Roger Stone, including his new book, and a Netflix documentary coming out called Get Me Roger Stone that he was a part of. We'll talk about all that and more. Gene Baradelli, Behind Enemy Lines, will be back right after these brief words. If you're a long-time listener of the show, or maybe this is your first time listening, you can probably tell that me and the gang here, we like to have our share of fun, whether it's on or off the air. We talk about 2-drink minimum radio and no medication Wednesdays or whatever day it may be. That's why when we found the people at Less Government, More Fun, we knew it was a match made in heaven with this show. Folks, we live in a time where government is out of hand. Our founding fathers did not intend government to be all-consuming in all parts of our lives. That's why we are telling you to go to lessgovmorefun.com, check out the website, check out the swag. What the people want